I'd like to start by thanking the DoraHacks team for having me. Very excited to be here with you all. Today, I want to talk about our vision of the future and how the infrastructure ecosystem is going to play out over the coming years. If you cannot already tell from the slide, we do expect there's going to be a lot of blockchains, potentially thousands of blockchains in the coming years. And with that, we're going to need to connect all those blockchains. We're going to need interoperability, which is going to be the main topic of my talk today. But before I tell you what Axelar does and how we solve the interoperability problem, I want to start by motivating a little bit the problem itself. So the reason we expect there's going to be thousands of blockchains, I guess for one, if you already look at the ecosystem today, there's already hundreds of different layer ones and layer twos. When I talk about blockchains, whether it's a layer one, a layer two, a layer three, they are all going to need interoperability, right? So I'm not talking about just alt layer ones. Any execution machine, any layer one, any layer two, by my definition, is going to be a different blockchain. And blockchains themselves have fundamental limitations on how much they can scale. If we look at the EVM today, it can only process so many transactions sequentially. And that's a fundamental limitation of the EVM itself, right? Even if you throw a ton of computing at it, you can only process so many transactions sequentially. And if we want to onboard this next billion of users to the space and want millions or tens of millions of transactions per second across multiple chains, the one single threaded EVM is just not going to be able to support it, right? So the way to scale is by scaling horizontally and using different execution layers for different big applications. And in a future where we have so many different blockchains, interoperability is going to be very important. My personal prediction is that in 5 years, about 25% of all blockchain transactions are going to be cross-chain. Now, why am I thinking of this? If we look at how people are using blockchains today, typically you're going to go on Uniswap, you make a swap, then you go on Aave, you take a loan, or you go buy an NFT. And empirically, what we've seen is that about 1 every 4 transactions is on a different application. In a world where applications live on different blockchains, those cross-application transactions are going to be cross-chain. And if every 4th or so transaction is cross-application, that's going to be an interoperable transaction, right? So it's really, really important to get the user experience right and make it as easy as possible for people to move across chains, given they're going to have to do it so often. Now, when we started building Axelar, we took a good look at the interoperability infrastructure at the time, and we identified a bunch of big problems. The first problem was that all those existing bridges at the time were centralized, which was a big attack vector from a security standpoint. You may remember from the time projects such as multi-chain, REN protocol. There were dozens of projects. A lot of them were claiming to be decentralized. But what actually was happening behind the scenes was that some entity, typically a founder, was holding the keys. And when inevitably those keys were compromised, all the funds were gone. So this was the biggest problem we set out to solve. The second one was scalability. All those bridging solutions were operating in a pairwise fashion. So if you want to connect a new chain with 10 different chains, you had to build 10 different connections. This is what we say quadratic scaling. When you want to add a new connection, if you have pairwise, peer-to-peer connectivity, you only scale quadratically. So it's a big problem for scalability. And finally, the last problem with all those solutions was that they were bridging solutions, right? A user, when they want to move between chains to use a new application, they should not have to change wallets, swap chains on the wallet, and do a bridging transaction. It should all be seamless, right? So for this talk today, we're going to go beyond bridges and talk about a solution that abstracts away all this complexity from moving from one chain to another. So how do we solve all those problems with Axelar? For the first problem, remember, a lot of the solutions were centralized, right? And the only way we know to decentralize some entity that passes information from one blockchain to another is by building a blockchain ourselves. If you remember back in the day, when blockchains were starting, proof-of-stake blockchains were starting, there were proof-of-authority blockchains, but then none of those exist today, right? They were all replaced by proof-of-stake blockchains. So this is similar to how we're thinking about Axelar. The first generation of bridges was centralized proof-of-authority bridges. Axelar itself, though, is based on blockchain technology, built on top of the Cosmos SDK, and we have 75 validators. So when you pass a message from any chain that you see in the circle to any other chain, this message is secured by a majority, a weighted majority of these 75 validators. This is similar security levels to all of the chains we connect to because we have all of the big validators on the Axelar network, right? So when you use Axelar, you're getting similar levels of security to the native chain that you're starting with and ending with. And you can also see some statistics on the left. We processed $8+ billion in volume. It's very scalable as well. We have 60+ supporting blockchains and 75 acting validators. So yeah, just some more thoughts on the security side. Again, proof-of-stake technology is the only way we know how to decentralize entities that pass information from one chain to another. 75 validators, which means you have to corrupt a lot of validators in order to steal funds. And the last important piece, it's rate limits, right? And rate limits, one way to think about them is like circuit breakers in traditional TradFi systems. Even if the more complex part of the code breaks, a rate limit is a final check before a contract sends funds out to the user, and they are updated every 6 hours. So even if there's a catastrophic failure on the core part of the code, the idea is that rate limits are going to prevent any big loss of funds, and then hopefully like the community can recover the funds, and they're only going to lose a limited amount compared to the whole TVL at stake. So rate limits are very, very important for all applications. Now, in terms of scalability, what's unique about the Axelar design is that, if you remember from the diagram 2 slides ago, we have a blockchain that connects blockchains. And what this gives us is many-to-many connectivity. If you want to connect a new chain to Axelar, you can issue a single connection, and then through Axelar, you can route transaction to any other chain in the ecosystem. This is a feature that everyone likes, but in particular, I want to focus on the work we're doing with financial institutions. Now, financial institutions that want to launch permission chains, typically, they want to connect to 5 or 10 big permissionless chains as well, like ZK Sync. Arbitrum is one they ask a lot about, Solana. If they had to do pairwise connections, they had to permission and maintain 10 different connections, each to every single chain. This is a security risk because you expand your attack vector, and then your attack surface, and then also it's a lot of maintenance costs. So it's more expensive and it's less secure. But with Axelar, you can permission a single connection to the Axelar hub, the Axelar chain, and through our services, you can route messages to any other chain, right? So a single permission connection for a financial institution is much cheaper and can give them access to 60+ blockchains and every future blockchain that Axelar stack is going to connect to. The final nice thing about this hub-and-spoke architecture is risk isolation. If a single connection breaks, the Axelar hub can isolate any damage, for example, by rate limits to that particular connection. While if you have pairwise connectivity, something breaks on a single chain, the damage can propagate to every other single connection, and it's very, very hard to contain it, right? So we strongly feel that this hub-and-spoke architecture is going to be, I guess, the end state of blockchain interoperability. There has to be a hub somewhere. Now, for the final part, I talked about the user experience. Most of the earlier interoperability solutions were bridges, but with Axelar, we're offering a platform. We're not offering a bridge. By that, I mean that we offer a platform that allows developers to pass messages from one chain to another. So if you have an application on Avalanche and you have an instance of your application on Solana and you want them to communicate, you can integrate with Axelar endpoints and build what we call a cross-chain application, right? So the idea here is that the same way that on a single blockchain like Ethereum, you can build a DEX, you can build a money market, you can build an NFT marketplace. With Axelar, you can do cross-chain versions of those applications, right? A cross-chain DEX, which is a bridge, cross-chain money market, and so on. And for the next part of the talk, I'm going to talk about some of these examples of native cross-chain applications that people have been building using the Axelar platform. And really, the idea is that we want seamless UX, right? The end game of blockchain US is that I'll be able to go on my phone, I will have a wallet that will show me my assets, and I will be able to directly interact with applications. The users should only have to think about assets and applications, similar how they do in Web 2. Maybe behind the scenes, you have USDC balance on Solana and on Avalanche and on Polygon. Your wallet should abstract all of that away and allow you to use your balance directly on any application. So towards that end, the first application that was built on Axelar called Squid, this is a cross-chain DEX, or a lot of you will think of it as a bridge. It allows you to do swaps from any chain to any other chain, right? So if you have some Matic on Polygon, you want to get some AvaX on Avalanche, you issue one transaction on Polygon, and you receive your AvaX on the Avalanche side. Behind the scenes, what's going to happen is there's going to be like 4 or 5 transactions, one swap, another swap, a bridge in operation, another swap, and another swap. And someone will have to pay gas on all of these different steps. With Axelar, we have services that do that on behalf of the user, and as we're going to see in a moment, the whole flow is a single click from the user's point of view, right? So let's see what's actually happening here. You connect your MetaMask only on the origin chain. You initiate a swap, very similar to how you do it on Uniswap. You get a rate, and you submit a transaction. And what's very cool is that the whole flow is only going to take something like 20 seconds. We have a set of services that can securely express transactions across chains throughout this flow, even though it's less than 20 seconds. The user is not going to assume any risk throughout the path, right? And the process is fully decentralized. So that's it. And then if we pulled up the block explorers, you would be able to see that the user received the funds already on the destination chain. But this is just one example, right? We also have cross-chain money markets where, similar to the app before, you can collateralize an asset on Avalanche. In this case, they're Bitcoin on the Avalanche side, and get a loan on Phantom. And really, the core of the application lives on Polkadot, right? So again, we can build these chain-abstracted user experiences while the user only has to issue a single transaction from their wallet. And finally, the use case I want to talk about is one of cross-chain governance. So Uniswap, last year, they did this election process for bridging partners, and they picked Wormhole and Axelar for the use case of cross-chain governance. So what happens on Uniswap is that all Uni token holders are on the Ethereum blockchain. But what if you have an instance of Uniswap on BNB chain or on Filecoin, and you want to make a governance upgrade, maybe to pass a parameter change? Through Axelar, now you can do this. You can have all the users vote on Ethereum, and once the governance outcome is, passes, you can pass the information on the destination chain and upgrade the parameter or anything else you wanted to do. Right? So really, any use case you want to do cross-chain, you can now do with Axelar, right? And you can get seamless user experience with that. Finally, I want to talk about one interesting product that we have on the roadmap that I really haven't heard anyone else in the space talking about. This is what we call the Interchain Maestro. For those of you that are familiar with Kubernetes, with this orchestration tooling in Web 2, what this allows you to do is automate deployment of your applications across multiple chains. And the problem this solves is the following. If we look at cross-chain applications today, as a developer, if you want to build on 10 chains versus one chain, it's going to take you at least 6 extra months, because you have to deploy the application on 10 chains, you have to do multiple tests. It's a much more complex endeavor. So what we're aiming to do with this Interchain Maestro is make it super easy to deploy applications on multiple chains, effectively make it as easy as deploying on a single chain. And this feature is actually already live for tokens. So what I'm going to present now is this Interchain token service that allows a developer to take a token cross-chain in as fast as 2 minutes. And this is a no-code solution, so even if you're not a developer, you can go on the portal, take a token cross-chain yourselves. So let's see what actually happens here. You basically take an existing token, you copy the address on the Explorer, you're simply going to select a bunch of chains, issue one transaction on your origin chain, you pay gas one time on the origin chain, and that's it. After a few minutes, you're going to have your token on all the chains you want, and you don't even need to be a developer to do this. And really, with the Interchain Maestro, we want to expand this to all applications so that you have an application on one chain. With a few clicks, you can take it multi-chain. It's as seamless as possible, right? So this is something that is in the works today. And here it's just showing you how the token was actually deployed within a few minutes on a bunch of different chains. And now for the final part of the talk, I want to zoom out a little bit and talk about the ecosystem of applications that are building on Axelar. To start, I want to focus on some of the existing big applications that have been going cross-chain. And really, if you look at any important vertical, we have as partners some of the top projects because everyone needs interoperability. Everyone wants to expand to all chains while maintaining seamless user experience. And this is what Axelar enables. So in DeFi, we're working with some of the bigger players like Lido, DYDX, Uniswap. Also doing a lot of work on the enterprise side with financial institutions, a lot of work with Microsoft, JP Morgan. We announced a proof of concept a couple of months ago. And I'm really glad to be in Asia because we see a lot of the growth on this particular vertical come out from here, right? Because I think regulators are very progressive here. They're very friendly. And we see a lot of growth. So we have a lot of new things on the enterprise side that we're going to be announcing with partners in the region. Some of the biggest wallets as well have all integrated Axelar. And the other vertical I'm really excited about is real-world assets, where I think virtually all of the important players like Ondo Finance, Mountain Protocol, Centrifuge, and many new ones that are launching are going to be using Axelar because they really like the decentralization. It's very good from a regulatory perspective as well. And finally, we also have a vast ecosystem of native cross-chain applications. A lot of the things, just to give a shout out to, I think we mentioned Squid and Prime. There's Synther, another one that's going to be launching soon. Is protocol that launched yesterday and already doing a good amount of transactions. But really, the idea is that Axelar is building a cross-chain ecosystem. It's not a bridge, and we're going to see all kinds of cross-chain applications. The same way on Ethereum, you have all these amazing applications that people are forking, composing with. We're doing the same thing with cross-chain. Thank you all so much for the time. If you want to follow us on Twitter, on Telegram, we're always available to answer questions. You can also find me personally on Twitter under my name, and really excited to be building here and work closely with you all.